There are no bigger movies than those included in the Avengers titles from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has produced some of the biggest and greatest movies of the 21st century. Most of the canon's significant events have occurred in the first three phases of the franchise. Now, the ordinary Marvel fan would more than likely find it very difficult to pick the top moments because all the Avengers films are packed with blockbuster battles, important showdowns, and significant emotional sequences. But look at some of our top picks and let us know if you agree. First up, in no particular order, the Mjolnir lifting competition from Avengers Age of Ultron. Earth's mightiest heroes usually only get together when a crisis that could end the world is present. So that's why it's really nice and refreshing to see them unwinding and hanging out in the first moments of Avengers Age of Ultron movie. Because tensions are high in their line of business, the Mjolnir lifting contest is a hilarious scene that also shows a lot about each individual, which is a difficult balance to strike. Additionally, the sequences in Avengers Endgame has a fantastic payoff, with Thor screaming, "I knew it!" when Captain America can summon the mythic hammer. Next up, Captain America's patriotic posterior. The Avengers' time heist to steal the 6 Infinity Stones was a fantastic look back at the MCU's past. A portion of the New York squad was immediately put into action with their old selves, but most of the crew avoided their earlier portrayals. In order to maintain control of Loki's scepter, Steve Rogers had the unpleasant burden of fighting himself from 2012. The best part of the fight was reserved for the end, after the fantastic callbacks of "I can do this all day" and 2023 Steve leveraging his own Bucky expertise against his foe. Tony Stark remarked about how Cap's behind looked in his old suit as soon as he, Scott Lang, and Steve arrive at Avengers Tower. Scott then encouraged Steve by saying, "As far as I'm concerned, that's America's butt." After defeating his former self, Steve took a good, long look at the booty and couldn't help but agree with his little teammate. The audience exploded in amusement when Steve's character development was highlighted, demonstrating that even the franchise's most practical hero can make a decent joke when given a chance. Now, while not a happy moment, it is still iconic, and that is when Gamora is sacrificed by Thanos in Avengers Infinity War. At this point, it is common knowledge that Thanos is evil. His history of adopting children from planets he attacks just adds to the horror show, as his mission to restore cosmic balance lowers him to becoming a murderous monster. There are no justifiable justifications for his behavior, yet he discovers the only means to obtain the Soul Stone, Avengers Infinity War, adds an emotional and sympathetic core to him. When the tone changes, and the Guardian of the Galaxy transitions from laughing to crying as she realizes what is about to happen, both Josh Brolin as the Mad Titan and Zoe Saldana as Gamora provide outstanding performances. It's terribly sad, but such a great watch. Next up, another dark yet huge moment is Tony Stark's funeral. Numerous characters' tales found resolution in Avengers Endgame, but none of these resolutions was more significant than Tony Stark's passing, and it is safe to say that the tribute to MCU's first hero was astounding. The attendance at Tony's funeral was one of the largest in movie history, and he not only sent his closest friends and family one final message via hologram that included a poignant "I love you 3000" for his young daughter Morgan. The shot pans out to practically every live hero from the Infinity Saga assembled in front of the Stark cabin after Pepper sends Tony's initial arc reactor into the lake. The most brilliant researchers, magicians, fighters, and other luminaries from the galaxy paid tribute to the late Avenger due to Tony's influence on their world. The fact that every single actor in the scene was present on location and in person for this scene is simply incredible, especially considering how mind-blowing the scene was and how big-time the actors are. Without a doubt, this was one of the most star-studded single shots in movie history. Even after a moment as painful as Tony's passing, the 1-minute 45-second shot was the ray of optimism required to finish the film wonderfully. Tony's burial was exactly the expression of respect and thanks he deserved. There won't likely be another cinematic moment like this for Marvel Studios for a very long time. Next up, the birth of Vision. One of Joss Whedon's main demands, when he was being courted for what was then called Avengers 2, was that the movie allow him the chance to bring Paul Bettany's Vision to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Since the purple-faced, cape-wearing android had a distinctive appearance and backstory, it is understandable why it seemed a stretch at the time, but Avengers Age of Ultron shows how effectively it worked. Vision appears to be the ideal character to bring balance when the titular team is in crisis mode due to Tony Stark's reckless behavior, bringing not only a zen and calm demeanor, but also astonishing new talents to the table, which we loved to see. Now, how could we forget Hulk vs. Loki? A truly great Avengers viewing moment. The use of comedy, which balanced the onslaught of emotional drama and intense action with jokes to produce an all-around engaging experience, was one of the factors in the Marvel Cinematic Universe universes that made it so popular. It had everything. Every title, except for The Incredible Hulk, features several hilarious moments that are still very memorable years later. Still, the initial confrontation between the Hulk and Loki in the Avengers is the funniest one we've seen so far. The god of mischief enters the battle full of self-assurance, declaring aloud that the Hulk, the Avengers, and the entire planet are beneath him. However, the green monster quickly ends his boasting by whipping him around like a rag doll. This is a truly hilarious moment that everybody needs to see multiple times. When Thanos snaps in Avengers Infinity War. All of us have been influenced by superhero films to some extent. The good guys will prevail, and the bad guys will suffer for their evil crimes, no matter how much drama and tension may play out over the course of the 2 hours. Because of this, Thanos' triumphant snap, which kills half of all life in the cosmos, makes Avengers Infinity War's ending so terribly heartbreaking. "You should have gone for the head" is the opening remark of the scenario, and what follows is heartbreaking, as our beloved protagonists have to bid goodbye to the people they care about. It's the most significant event in the canon of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it never gets easier to watch. The Avengers Assemble moment from Avengers Endgame. One of the more important criticisms of Avengers Infinity War, despite being minor in the larger scheme of things, was that it failed to provide any sort of massive team shot, even though such a moment was hinted at in the trailers. In hindsight, that doesn't matter, because Avengers Endgame delivered one that was so significant that you completely forgot about its predecessor's shortcomings. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, aka MCU, delivered one of the most spectacular shots in cinematic history when every Marvel hero arrived on the battlefield against Thanos. From humble beginnings and continual doubts about whether a shared universe could succeed, fans will be eternally thankful for it. How could it be topped? It appears impossible considering how huge the moment was, but you never know what Marvel might pull out of the bag. If Marvel does something like this again in the future, we seriously could not handle it, and it would break the internet and box office for sure. And finally, the closure moments we all needed from the Avengers Big Three. Similar chapter closings occurred throughout the 3 hours of Avengers Endgame, much like how Tony's funeral served to conclude his journey. The movie was mostly focused on the original team that fans have known and loved for years. Quite appropriately, the 3 most significant members of the original team experienced significant resolution moments. Since the beginning of the MCU, Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor have served as its 3 main characters. During the time heist, each of them has a unique moment of closure with a significant other. Thor gets to speak to his mother Frigga, while he and Rocket are searching for the Reality Stone in Asgard, and she reassures him that despite his shortcomings, he is still a decent guy. She gently communicates her knowledge to him, reminding her son that he only needs to be himself and not the man that everyone else wants him to be. After a decade of suffering, the Asgardian queen's final conversation with the new king aids in his coming to grips with her passing. When they go back to 1970 in search of the Tesseract, Tony and Steve both have their moments. After obtaining the Space Stone, Tony runs across his father, Howard, and the two have a very touching conversation about parenthood. Finally, Tony is able to hug his father and express his gratitude for everything he has done for him. While acquiring the Pym particles, Steve catches a brief glimpse of Peggy Carter, the love of his life. After returning the Infinity Stones, he once again learns how important she is to him, which eventually influences his decision to remain in the past. In the end, the movie gives Steve and Peggy the happy ending they rightly deserved by allowing them to do the slow dance they had been talking about since their first appearance in Captain America: The First Avenger. The big 3 Avenger actors collectively made close to 30 MCU appearances as a result of their dedication to the franchise. Even though Chris Hemsworth will undoubtedly continue to play a significant role in the franchise, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans both got the impactful climaxes to their stories that they deserved. But we want to know your thoughts. Which Avengers moment is your absolute favorite? Do you agree with our picks? Which one takes the top spot in your eyes? Let us know. Unfortunately, guys, that is all the time we had for today. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.